This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
Today's
morning.
class. Yes. So today is the first day of development session. So thanks for joining. I think most of you are joining. Some of you are joining the developer session directly, right? And some of you are continuing from your admin session of my batch. So whoever joining new as a development batch, myself, Ranjit, holding 16 plus years of experience, out of which 8 years in Salesforce. And I'm delivering corporates and online trainings, and I'm also into consulting, assisting companies for interview preparations, setting up the team, implementations, etc. Okay, so this is my brief background. My nativity is Chennai. I was in Hyderabad and different other places for for serving clients, delivering trainings. Currently, I am put up in Chennai. So before we get into uh, the core technical part of the development session, we'll see why do you need uh, the programming in your Salesforce platform, right? Because we have two different uh, approach. Two different ways you can create applications and create tables in Salesforce. There are many ways you can create application in Salesforce. So in general, there are two approaches, right? In general, there are two approaches: declarative approach and we have a programmatical approach. So you can tailor your it means you can work with your Salesforce organization in two approaches: programmatical and declarative. So everything you learn in your admin part without coding, whatever you learn in your admin part without coding, it comes under declarative approach, right? It can be creating application, object, tab creation, page layout, right? And your validation rules and your process automations like workflows, process builder, flows, setting up security for users like security and sharing settings, the roadability, isn't it? So all of these features you implement without any coding. So no coding approach, right? No coding approach is called a declarative approach. We also call it as configuration, right? We also say it's called the configurations, right? In the programmatical approach, we say it's called customization. Okay, so in general, in Salesforce, in any interviews, if you go, no, you may get a they may ask you to rate yourself. They may ask you to rate yourself how much confident in configurations, how much confident you are in customization. Okay, how good you are in customization, which means, right, how good you are in coding. Okay, if they ask you, right, how good you are in configurations, it means whether you are, right, how much strong you are in admin part of your platform. Okay, so Salesforce platform providing you two different approaches to to provide solutions for any of your customer problem. Okay, it can be a declarative approach or programmatic approach, right? So what is the best approach if you get any solution, right? If you get any problem that needs to be implemented, what is the approach? What is the best approach you will take, right? If you are a developer, right? You are a developer, you get a problem, you need to analyze. So what is the best approach? You have to first explore, you have to first analyze this problem, whether you have a solution. You can provide the solutions with configurations, with a declarative approach, right? When you say declarative approach, it's called out of box feature, right? It's called out of box feature. It means everything is already built in the platform. Take an example of your sending email notification. Sending email notification whenever I lost the opportunity. Whenever I lost the opportunity, I need to send an email notification. So what normally you will do, if you are not sure about workflow, then we'll go for providing an API approach. API means the programmatic approach, right? We will provide a programmatic approach to achieve this. But we have out-of-box feature workflows, right? When a criteria is met, we can send email notification, isn't it? We can send email notification. The user requirement is to insert a value for an object. So we have a declarative approach, right? We have a tab, and the tab has the features like list view, new button, using which I can insert row into the object. So I need not go for program, isn't it? So uh, uh, when someone delete the opportunity record, when someone delete the opportunity record, then I would like to post some information to the I'd like to send email to the users, right? So this is basically, you can achieve it in you cannot achieve it in declarative approach, then you go for programmatic approach. So something which is not possible in the declarative approach configurations, then we'll go for programmatic approach. A simple approach like your a page layout, right? If you take a page layout, so how many columns you can have in a page layout maximum? How many columns you can have in a page layout? You want? How many columns you can arrange your fields in your page layout? Maximum, how many number of columns you can use? Anyone? You can put it in chat window also. How many number of columns you can have in your page layout? Maximum 2, right? Maximum 2 columns, right? If the customer says, no, we need a 4 columns layout. We need a 4 columns layout. Okay, right? We have I need to arrange my the fields, rest of the fields in third and fourth column. We cannot achieve it using page layout, right? We cannot do it. So we need to go for a custom UI. We need to create our custom user interface, right? Custom is basically what we implement. A standard is part of the platform. It's already inbuilt, right? It's already developed in the platform. So the custom UI is an interface we need. Then we go for building our interface with Visualforce, HTML, or if you take Lightning, then you go for Lightning components, Aura components. If it is part of your Lightning web development, then we'll go for web development framework components. Okay, so when something is not possible in out-of-box feature configurations, then we'll go for customization. Okay. In some cases, we'll have a solution in both the approach. In some cases, possible solutions we can provide using configurations and customizations. Right. In that cases, you will compare the solutions. Right. You compare both, which is the best approach in terms of maintenance. So which right in terms of maintenance, in terms of okay, in terms of cost. So like that, you will choose which is the best approach. Then you will proceed. Whether it's the configurations or customization. Got me? Right. So these are the basic things you should know. It's not necessarily like you have to go with a programmatical approach. No, because as you are good in programming, you should not go programmatical approach since you are good in programming. Right? You should find a better approach in your declarative configurations. Then, in case if the approach is not you're not able to achieve in declarative approach configurations, then you go for a programmatical approach. Programmatical approach, we have no constraint, right? We have no limitations, right? You can provide, you can achieve any type of you can provide any type of solutions. You can find out any type of solutions for your problem in your customization approach. But we have constraints in your declarative approach, right? So for example, in workflow, how many actions we can automate? Only 4 actions, like field update, email, assigning a task, outbound message. So only 4. So what are the possibilities we can do in process builder? There are 11 actions you can automate in process builder, right? Any of you remember all those 11 approaches? Email alert, record update, record create, isn't it? Quick actions, custom notifications, cube documentation, approval process, flows, Apex code. So there are 11 actions we can do. And process builder and workflow, the process builder and workflow can only be invoked. The process builder and workflow, when the process builder and workflow will fire the actions, in what DML operations the workflow and process builder will fire the actions? Anyone? In which DML operations?
Create, update, delete.
Be louder, ma.
Create or edit.
When criteria is met, fine, Sini. My question is, see, you should pay attention to the questions. You should have practice of paying attention to the questions to face your interview. So, in what DML operation? When I say DML, database operation. Okay, you should be familiar with these terminologies. DML, which means data manipulation. Database operation. In what database operation? Yes, it's not absurd. Okay, you can say it's absurd, but it's not absurd. It is insert and update. Yes, in general you can say it's absurd, or else you say insert and update. So only, right, when you insert a new record or when you modify the existing record, the workflow and process builder will fire an action. So we have a limitation, we have constraint, right? So what about if I have a problem like requirement when someone delete the contact record, then I need to throw an error message if the contact belongs to some account. When someone trying to delete the contact record, I need to throw an error message. I should not allow user to delete the contact if the contact belongs to any account. We cannot do it using workflow and process builder, right? Because workflow and process will only fire the actions for insert and update database operations, not for delete. And in other cases, workflows and process builder will only fire the actions after we performed insert and update, right? After we performed insert and update, not before. So only after we performed insert and update, the workflow and process builder will fire the actions. So we have limitations in your declarative approach. So when that limitation needs to be overcome, when the limitation needs to overcome, and you need a something solution which is not possible in the declarative approach, then we'll go for a customization, which means the customization doesn't have any boundary. Okay, doesn't have any boundary. But now, if you are a good developer, then you should be a good administrator. So the person who is the developer, the Salesforce guy who is strong in both the approaches, can provide a better solution for your client. Okay, so be strong in configuration. This is more important because this part will help you to find out every solutions without going for customization, because customizations involves more maintenance, which means someone has written the code, right? Someone has written the code, and if you are into doing some changes in the same code, then that is where you will see the difficulties of how the coding could be, right? It means that if you follow the best practice and standard, obviously you can write a better code, but it always requires more maintenance compared to your declarative configuration part. Okay, and cost wise we need a skilled resource, right? So it requires more skilled resource, right? The person who should be strong in coding and logical thinking, then compared to configuration. So always the customization requires more maintenance and cost. But if if you are good in coding, then you will see you can achieve any type of any extent. You can provide solution to the customer. You can provide a better solution to the customer, right? So let's see. Okay, I just given the comparison and I just given the approaches, and in terms of interview, you may uh, know uh, uh, face this type of questions. It's very frequently asked questions. Okay, how much rate yourself in configuration, rate yourself in customization. Okay, don't be confused. If it is configuration, rate yourself in configuration out of 5. Say for example 5 is highest rating, then you should know the question is all about how good you are in declarative approaches. Maybe it's the workflows, process, flows, okay, approach process. So all is all right. It's all about configuration. I mean declarative approach. Okay, when something the question is on how good you are in customization, which means it's all about programming. Okay, so when you say programming, we have two different uh, development framework, right? Because now we have Salesforce has two types of interface. One is Lightning, and another is Classic interface. So the Lightning interface is called Lightning Experience, right? We have two interfaces we have in uh, Salesforce. Of course, we have also it's applicable for both the configuration and customization. In general, we have two types of interfaces in Salesforce. Okay, so when you say classic development, then how do you develop the user interface in your classic? Okay, so basically I mentioned an experience. I mean a requirement, right? We need a 4-column layout, right? So how do you replace this standard page layout with your a custom UI interface with 4-column layout? So you can do it using a Salesforce native language called Visualforce. Okay, it's a Salesforce own native language. Okay, it's this platform. No, this programming language can only run in your Salesforce platform. Okay, so Visualforce tags. You can also call it as Visualforce tags. It is more like your HTML. It's more like your HTML, a tag-based language. Okay, we are going to see much more detail down the line. And we have Apex. So Apex is a language, a programming language used to write a business logic. Okay, where HTML is used to Visualforce basically is used to create an interface, a form, right? Something where user can enter the data. Right? You'll have a field, a space to enter value to enter for that field. So like this, you can create an interface, a form, right? When I enter the value and I submit some action, I initiate some action, then what happens to this data? Whatever the value I entered, it needs to be inserted into the database. Okay, I need to compare these values. I do some calculation against this currency value. So some logic you are going to perform. Okay, so those business logic you can write using a language called Apex. Okay, so Visualforce just to create an interface. It doesn't involve any business logic, but how do you associate a Visualforce and Apex? Then you'll see you can process the data whatever you enter in the form by using your own custom logic. Written using Apex programming language. So Apex is another language we have in Classic framework. And okay, so these two things are important. I can say only Visualforce belongs to your Classic framework, but still, whatever you develop using Visualforce will also run in Lightning also. Can also be executable in Lightning interface also. Okay, and Apex is not just for Classic framework; is a common framework which is applicable for both your Classic and Lightning. Okay. Apart from that, Lightning has its own programming languages like components like Aura components, Aura tags, and it has LWC, okay, etc. And again, both these frameworks, you can write HTML, JavaScript, right? All these are all common languages applicable both in Classic and Lightning. And in addition to that, we have common frameworks like Trigger, Batch effects. In general, you can say asynchronous process. Asynchronous Apex. Okay, so all these things you are going to cover as part of your developer session. These two things, but these two things, these things, whatever I boxed here, we are going to cover in our session itself, and these things belongs to your Lightning framework. Okay, it's a separate course. You will see we cannot combine these two frameworks. Okay, it should be good in first the Classic framework, but Classic framework is more about your Visualforce basically, and the rest of things what you're going to cover like the frameworks like a Trigger, asynchronous Apex, and other things, writing test class. So everything is common for your Classic and Lightning. Okay, so Lightning is basically before when you go for Lightning session, that you should be good in the data modeling part of data modeling and security model, which means you should be good in configurations, and you should have some exposure to the Visualforce, and you should have good exposure with your Apex. Right? What I'm saying is before you go to the Lightning experience. But what are the prerequisite knowledge you should have to learn the development in general in Salesforce? What are the prerequisite knowledge you should have to learn the development in Salesforce? Okay, that's we'll see now. So far, it's clear to all of you. Any response?
Yes,
So far,
yes.
it's clear. Okay. Right. So, what are the prerequisite knowledge? Which means something you are going to learn. Then they say like you should have this basic knowledge to learn this. Okay. So, I would say you need not have any prerequisite knowledge to learn the development. Okay, what I'm saying is it is not mandatory. It doesn't mean like you should not have. It doesn't mean like you should not have. I'm saying it is not mandatory. Everyone should have a basic programming knowledge to learn the programming part. Okay, so but if you're already a programmer, knowing some other languages like HTML or any hooks-based language, object-oriented concept, then you will find some you know uh, uh, similarities, and you'll be able to catch the concept maybe some better than others. But still, if you are a beginner, very new to programming, still you can learn the programming part of your Salesforce, and by gradually you'll see you'll be a good in programming, and you can also an expert in API. It means in customization. Okay, so it doesn't mean that you should not have a basic programming knowledge, but it's always uh, good to have, but it's not mandatory. Okay, so and where you are going to start, we're going to start with Visualforce, then we'll move on to Apex. Okay, then we'll have see scenarios both Apex and Visualforce. That's what you're going to, that's the approach you're going to take now. Okay, first we'll start with Visualforce, then we'll see the basics of Apex, then we'll combine together and we'll see the scenarios and examples. That is the approach we are going to take now. Okay, so and apart from this, I mentioned you can use HTML and JavaScript also as part of your in UI. It means Visualforce program. You can also use HTML and JavaScript also. So these are all not your Salesforce language, but still you can use these in your Visualforce page. And I would also cover the JavaScript, and HTML is it's like a very user-friendly language. You know how to do it when you learn the Visualforce. But JavaScript I'm going to cover as part of this developer course. Okay, so when you have a good idea about JavaScript, then you'll see it's going to be very helpful for you to do the develop your lightning components. Okay, but again LWC, when you go for LWC is required modern JavaScript. Okay, so that's again in next level from your the JavaScript what I'm going to cover. Okay, so anyway, these are all things we need not get into the sessions right now, right? You'll see that gradually you will learn step by step. Then finally you'll know you'll see you'll be good in program. Okay, so anyway, we cannot do it everything in a day, overnight, right? So everything is going to be happen step by step. Okay, so let's start with the Visualforce page basics. Okay, so what is Visualforce page? So it's a name of the language, right? It's the name of the language, Visualforce. I just say Visualforce. It's the name of the language used to create custom user interface. Visualforce is the name of the language of Salesforce native language, which means the language, the application you build using Visualforce, the page that you build using Visualforce would only execute in Salesforce platform. Okay, and what is this language used for? It's used to create a custom user interface. Okay, this is a standard user interface, right? So using Visualforce, we can create our own custom interface. I can create a 4-column layout. I can add some images here, right? And I can add some a background image, isn't it? And I can increase the font of my sections, right? I can increase the font of my section, and I can have a pop-up here when a button click. So all those things, no, we cannot do it in standard page layout, which has its own limitation. So we'll go for Visualforce. So Visualforce is used to create a custom user interface. and I have a detailed notes here. What is Visualforce and why you go for Visualforce? And we go for Visualforce to override the standard functionality. You know, for example, when I click on new button, what happens currently? It takes me to the standard page layout, right? It takes me to the standard page layout, okay, which has a 2-column layout. But I do not want to, have this 2-column layout, standard page layout. Instead, I need to have a 4-column layout with my company logo at the top right side, and I do not want this help for this page. So all these things, I need in my own custom page. So when I click on new button, I would like to redirect to the my custom page, which means what? I'm going to override the standard page. I'm going to override the standard page with my Visualforce page. So why we go for Visualforce page? To override the standard functionality. Okay, and to create our own custom UI and associate the page with Apex, right? For example, when I click on save button, what happens currently? It insert the record into the, okay, when I do like this, I save, it insert and redirects to the detail page of the record, right? Instead, I would like to redirect to another custom page to get the contacts for this account. You got my requirement? So when I normally in the standard page load, when I insert a row, what happens? It inserts the row into the account object and redirects to the detailed page of the record. But what I need now, when I click on save button, the record needs to be inserted, but redirect to the new custom page, where the user can enter the contacts and opportunities. Okay, so that type of UI that can be done. So you can create a own custom UI and associate the page with Apex class, because Apex class where you write your business logic, right? So why we go for Visualforce? Override standard functionality to create your own custom UI, okay, and replace the standard tab with Visualforce tab. What is that? So when these are all standard tabs or custom tab, right? You can also have a custom tab. So all these custom tabs, how did we implement it? The custom tab or standard tab will have the list view feature, right? List view and a new button options. But what I need now, I do not want these features. When I click on a tab, I like to execute Visualforce page. I like to execute Visualforce page. This is a standard page, right? So we'll go for Visualforce code. So these are also few use cases, reason why you go for Visualforce. Okay, so let's get into what is Visualforce. Visualforce is a tag-based language. Visualforce is a tag-based language like HTML and XML. Okay, so tag-based language means you have a open tag and a close tag. We have open tag, close tag. Okay, so you'll have angle bracket, a tag name, and close bracket. You have open angle bracket and forward slash, which means this is a tag we open and this is a tag we close, and you can have the content between these. You can have a content between these. Okay, for example, if you take an XML language, XML is again in another a language, not the Salesforce language, the generic a language, so where it's used to create it's a data format, you can say, from one system to another system, you can pass data in this format. For example, I am going to have the a person details. So how we are going to have the details here? Name tag, open tag, close tag, within which we'll have a name of the person, right? The location of this, the address of this person, city, open and close tag. So this is like, this HTML is a kind of a tag-based language. Okay, the tag, or you can also say markup language. Okay, so every tag, tag is also called as markup. So it's a markup language or tag-based language. Okay, so like HTML and XML, these are similar languages, follow similar syntax. Okay, so every languages will have a syntax, right? Okay, and And HTML also has a similar thing, right? HTML also have a syntax like, so we have a, for example, we have a title. So we have a tag title and close by close tag like this, isn't it? And what it consists of, right? If I say the Visualforce page, then what the Visualforce page, if I develop any interface, then what does Visualforce page included? So it includes, in general, Visualforce components and controllers. Okay, we're going to discuss more detail about what is Visualforce component and controllers. Its components nothing but your tags. The components nothing but your tags. The tags like Visualforce has its own tag, like we have a name, city, and title. In a Visualforce, we have own tags. The tags are standard tags. They also provided the inbuilt library of tags, or you can also create your own custom tags also. Okay. In general, they are called components. Standard components, custom components. And what is controller? Apex, basically the Apex. If you write the Visualforce page, how do you connect your Visualforce page with your Apex? Then we'll write a business logic in Apex module, and we'll connect that module with your page. So the Visualforce page will have these two things in general. Okay, right? You may not able to relate completely at this point, but you'll see soon you'll able to relate what is components, what is controller. Fine. How many days week session is developer? Very curious to. Okay, 30 working days you can assume right now. Okay, including integration, we'll connect for 1.5 months. Okay, so minimum for you, right? And I said the components can be a standard or custom. Standard means they're given the library of components. They're given the library of components, collections of tags, using which you can create the Visualforce page. For example, if I'm going to add a field like this, a label like this, I'm going to add the label like this, course name. So how we can do it in Visualforce using standard components? I have a tag called input label. Like this. Okay, I'm just giving an example. It's not exactly same, but again example. So these input label, they are already given, in a library, belongs to the library called Apex. Apex is a kind of library. Okay, from the library, you will refer the component called input label. Okay, so these are standard components. They already, given that component. They created this component. Okay, so all we have to do is we have to use this component and provide whatever label you like to display between the open tag and the close tag. Okay, so these are standard components. If you have your own custom components, like the one you have your input label, then you can also create. So Visualforce components normally it can be a standard or custom. Mostly we know in 90% we are going to go with standard components. Right, so you'll see this in example how the Visualforce tags will look like. Apex colon page, Apex colon page. Apex is a library. You can say library. For example, I give a practical example. You are my I have a student named Suman, for example. I have a Suman in my batch 1114. Okay, I have another person in the batch 112. So I have the same person. I have a different person, but the same name, and in two different batches. So when I refer the person from 114, then how should refer? How should I refer? Like this. If I refer the person from 112 batch, then I refer like. So it's like a location. Okay, so whatever you're referring here before the colon, it's like a location. Okay, so you see here the Visualforce tags will have this type of format. Okay, so you do not have such format in your XML or HTML mandatorily. It's not mandatory here, but still it's applicable. But in Visualforce tags, you will see this is a format you will follow. Okay, so anyway, you're going to see much more detail down the line. Okay, fine, mark. Controllers. What do you mean by controllers? Controllers, I said, it's where you write your business logic. Okay, it's where you write your business logic. So it's nothing but your Apex class, and the Apex class is nothing but you write your own logic, and the system also provides inbuilt Apex class also called standard controller. The system also provides inbuilt Apex modules. You can say those modules are called as standard controller. Okay, right. So what you are talking about is a user interface, right? And every architecture programming will have some basic architecture, right? Based on which you are going to develop the application. So what is the architecture? That user interface, Visualforce page, is basically following which architecture? The architecture is called the Mvc architecture. This architecture, why do we use custom tag, Navi? Yes, you use custom tag, on many purpose. Maybe at this point, to explain that may not make any sense or scope, but so for example, I just say label, right? Label. So label purpose, whatever you give here, it's going to display in the user interface. Okay, it's going to display in the user interface, right? But okay, if something, the tag which is not available in the standard component, the tag like when I give something, the value, then it should display in different font. Okay, I should have a tag, say like Apex colon, time new Roman. I need a tab called Apex colon time new Roman. So whenever I give the label here, that should display in time new Roman style font. Okay, so then the component which you are looking for is not there in the standard library. Then we'll go and create our own custom component. Got me? And okay, we need to have we should have more details more than this to understand why you go for custom component. But at this point, now you should know something which is not there in standard component. You may go for creating your own custom component. That's it. Okay, why you go for custom? When something is not possible in the out of box feature, then you'll go for your own custom component, right? So that's the reason. That's a basic reason. Okay, so we are here, talking about the MES architecture. So what does that mean? The MES architecture is a common interface architecture, not just for Visualforce. No, it's the architecture, old architecture, based on which there are different user interfaces are there in the industry. Okay, so Visualforce is also following MES architecture. Okay, so we'll see what is MES architecture. MES architecture is an abbreviation of MES is an abbreviation of model, view, controller. Okay, M stands for model, V stands for view, and C stands for controller. Okay, it's called MEC architecture. Okay, so So what is this actually? It is a view, right? It is called a view. So view is nothing but a presentation part, the form. Okay, the view is nothing but the presentation part. So this is your view. The view is nothing but your presentation part. Right? And when a user enter the data and submit, then what happens to the data? It goes to the database, right? It goes to the database. So say I have an object here, training object, because we are talking about the training interface. So this part is called model. How do you call this? A model, which means where do you store your data? Where do you store your data? That's basically referred as model in Mvc architecture. So we have view, right? We have view and a model. And right, when a user submit the data, then how the data is going to be inserted into the database? How the data is, whatever the value entered by the user, those values needs to be inserted into the database, right? Then there should be something in between these view and model will take care of process this data and insert into the database. So this part is called controller. Got me? So controller is where you have your business logic. The controller is where you have your business logic. Am I right? So controller is basically process the data, okay, and it also, it insert the new record, and it also get the data from the database and display to the UI. So controller basically play a role between the view and model. So okay, which takes the data and insert or update, and which takes the data from model and display to the UI, right? Like here, so when you go for a list view, then what happens here? It gets the data from database to here, right? Right. So we have taken an example of standard layout. Okay, so in the standard layout, so how this is happening? Because of inbuilt controller. Okay, so the controller has already been written, right? Then how it happens now, right? When I click on a save button, then how the record is being inserted, right? Because there is a standard inbuilt controller which processes data and insert into the database. Got me? So we have inbuilt controller. So I said we can also write our own custom controller also. Okay, that part is called Apex. So Apex, is a language used to write your own custom logic. So this called this is a short abbreviation of what we say Mvc architecture. What is the advantage of Mvc architecture? Every layer is independent. Every layer is independent. What does it mean? I can, a developer can work on independently on developing the page. A developer can work on independently on creating the object, creating the relationship, creating the validation rules, page layout, record type. So the developer can work on data modeling without, having any impact on other layers. And a developer can writing the Apex logic independently. And all these threes are going to be stored in different layers, right? Different repositories. Okay, if you see, I have under build, develop, I have a separate places where I'm going to store all the Apex classes. I have a separate place where I can store the Visualforce pages. Okay, I have a different repository to store my all the objects. So all these three are independent layers. Okay, so suppose I am working for developing a big application where I am creating a 100 plus UI and many different controllers. Okay, and I have complex data modules, right? So with less dependency, I can have my developers, work on data models. One set of developers work on data modeling, one set of developers write the business logic. Okay, with less dependency. I don't say there won't be any complete dependency we can avoid, but it can be, may or may not. Okay, but normally you have 0 to 100% dependency. Any 0 to 100% dependency you can have in the Mvc architecture. Able to follow? You get any response? Able to follow all of you? Okay. Right. Whoever new to programming, session now, maybe Kiran, Alfia, Neil, Sauro, right? Are you able to follow this?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Right. I repeat, the view is nothing but your presentation part of your application. Okay, the presentation part of your application. Example, your page layout in standard, right? In classic, in classic interface, every application is built based on Mvc architecture. Take an example of your account record layout, record page. So this is your view, right? And where you are going to store the data into the account object. So your database where you store your data is called model. Okay, and the controller is inbuilt controller, right? We haven't written anything, to insert the account record, whatever you entered here, into the database, right? It happens because of inbuilt controller. Okay, so I said this page can be replaced with Visualforce page, right? This page can also be replaced with a Visualforce page. Okay, then when it is a Visualforce page, you can refer inbuilt controller or your Apex language also. Apex comes under here. Okay, now we are good. So this is called Mvc architecture. Okay, so let's continue with the Visualforce stack. Right. So that's what I given here. It's model, database and views, a presentation layer, and controller is for your business logic. Okay, right. What are the types of controller? We keep repeating, right? We have standard controller, custom controller. Okay, so standard controller is the controller which an inbuilt controller, and custom, the Apex, using Apex programming, we write our own logic. Okay, right. And extension is also a type of controller which is used to provide additional functionality, apart from your standard and custom functionality. Okay, suppose I return some Apex logic, and okay, whatever the logic I return, I'm going to add additional logic with a separate extension. Okay, so another Apex class, that is called extension, right? You'll see now down the line, what is extension, how do you use this? Okay, so the top two categories basically standard and custom. Okay, and extension is nothing but to add more functionality, to a standard and custom, go for extension. You remember your feature license in admin, isn't it? In addition to your user license, we go for feature license. In addition to your profile, we go for permission set, like that. For me, but here it's not going to behave like a permission set. It's going to, even you can use the extension to override the functionality whatever you there in standard and custom. You can override. Like quick example, why you go for the extension? When I click on save button, what happens right now? It's inserting data in the database, right? But I would like to override this standard functionality. So which means it is part of your standard controller, right? This functionality is basically will 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 run the business logic part of your standard controller. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to override that functionality. Then we'll go for extension. You got me, ma? Then we'll go for extension. Okay. Right. So, right, we are going to start the the basics of Visualforce language. Okay, we're going to start the very basics of Visualforce language. To write the business Visualforce page, to develop any custom page using Visualforce tag. So there are some basic things you should know. How it looks like and how do you write, what is the syntax. Okay, so there are some basic rules I given here. So see here, every page, when you write any your code, when you write any Visualforce program, then we'll call it as a page because it's a part of your presentation layer. Right? We call it as a page. So Visualforce page, starts with Visualforce page starts with open tag and close tag. Okay, we already discussed this, right? It's a HTML-like language. We'll have a open tag, close tag, within which we'll have a content. Okay, we'll have an open tag, close tag. Okay, the content can be so this content is the HTML content. So okay, don't concentrate much on this. Okay, you should know the the Visualforce tag always have open and close tag. This is a markup language. Okay, we just given some example. Later we'll see what is this and what is the purpose and all those things, right? And we already discussed every tag has this format, right? Some qualifier, colon, some qualifier. What is this actually? It's called library. You can say library, right? I give an example. We have okay, to refer some person belongs to a location, then we'll say the location name dot that person. Okay, similarly the library here is Apex, okay, which is also called namespace. Okay, how do you call it in your programming world terminology? It's called namespace or name of the library. Okay, even I think I given the similar example here. Okay, we have two say room numbers, for example 325, 324. I have people in this room, two persons, two person here. When I refer the person room 325, then I refer like this. Okay, right. And every tag must have open and close tag. Yes, every tag must have open and close tag. And you can also have a nested tab also, a tag inside the tag. Okay, then it's a parent, it's a child, and it's a second level child, and this is a parent for this child. Okay, in these cases the child tag must be closed first. Okay, you see here this is a child tag, right? So this close first and this is close first, and this tag has a content. The content is again another tag. So this tag must be closed first and then it will be closed first, then outer tag will be closed at the end. Okay, you cannot have like this, isn't it? You cannot, unless you close this tag, you cannot close this tag. It will give an syntax error, which means we have a compiler which will compile the program, right? Every program will have a compiler, right? Every program languages, not mandatorily, but in general, any program you you do some coding and then you will execute this, then the runtime engine will compile these to convert into the computer understanding format, right? So not when you compile, you'll see any syntax error you made, which means you are not following the tag, open tag, close tag, the rule. then you'll see the syntax error will throw. So tag that do not require content. You see, not every tag required a content. Okay, for example, here there is a tag called section header that doesn't require any content between these. Then I can close like this. Okay, either you can do like this. It's also fine, or else you can close in the same tag. If the tag doesn't have any content, we have some tags which does not require any content in between. Okay, in that case you can close the tag at the end itself. We need not have a close tag separately. You can end the tag, close the tag by having slash at the end. Clear, ma? Very well. Let's proceed. Okay. So every component tags have attributes. The tags will have an additional parameter inside. You see here, there is a tag called apex, right? And what I'm having, some parameter, it's called attribute. How do you call this? Attribute. Okay, so what is this attribute and all? That's going to be a next part of the session. Okay, so at this point, you need not worry about the purpose of the tag. All you should know is what is the basic rules. Okay, what are the basic rules we have in the Visualforce, writing the Visualforce page. Every tag, every page starts with okay. So here I would have given this point. I think I given other way. Every page should start with the apex colon page and close by apex colon page. You know what does it mean? Every Visualforce page will have a first line will have a apex colon page and close by apex colon page, and all the content of the page, the programming, the tags used to create the content of the page is going to be inside these two tags. Everything is inside these two tags. So these are the two outermost tags. Apex colon page slash apex colon page is a two outermost tag. Every other tag will be wrapped inside these two tags. Got me? That's what I given in this first point, but I think I explained another bit. Got me? Okay, so the page content always going to be inside these two main tags, and every tag will have attributes. So that's what I given here. So these are my page, apex colon page, and this attribute is called controller. This is an attribute called ID. Okay, similarly label, I have attributes called value and attributes called ID. What is the use of this? It's going to add the properties. It's going to add the properties to the tag. Okay, suppose what is this? When I run this page, there will be, you'll see a label display. And if you like to add some styling for this tag, I have an attribute called style. Okay, I got an attribute called style. I like to display these in a different font, say blue color. So I can do that. I can do this. I can do like this. Okay. So this, what is this called then? It's called attribute, which is going to add properties to the particular tag. Okay. So that's what I given here. Controller is an attribute belong to page component. Value is an attribute belong to apex label, right? Value, ID, and style, etc. And come down. And I remember I mentioned in the beginning, in page you can embed, which means it's a other language, right? Different language you can use inside your Visualforce page. HTML, CSS. CSS is a cascade style sheet, which is used to add, look and feel for your font, and add images using CSS, and jQuery and JavaScript, again, the script languages you can use to add more, create more dynamic in the sense, when I click on a button, for example, a pop-up should appear, right? So those type of dynamic things you can achieve it using jQuery, JavaScript. So these are all, the third-party languages, not Salesforce language, but still you can use as part of your page. Okay, so do not worry about at this point what is this, and these are all you can learn step by step. Right, we are going with we are going to start from the basics, right? So you'll be able to see once you are good in basics, you can extend that knowledge to next level by by doing consistent practice. Okay, and HTML can be directly embedded. Okay, HTML can be directly embedded without any additional tag, but the CSS, JavaScript, and all requires some tag here. For example, JavaScript should be inside the tag called script and closed by script, and CSS should be inside the tag called style. But HTML can be directly embedded like this. This is an example of HTML tag. When you do this, it will be highlighted in heading will be highlighted. H1 is for heading. H1 one level of highlighting. H2 more thicker level, it will be highlighted. Got me? I mean the font size will be bigger. Okay, so these are tags I can use directly in the Visualforce page. I mean HTML, but these languages need a special tag like. Fine now. And the page name is unique, which means what? How you are going to run your page? Visualforce page is like you can compare exactly with your the site, website. So when I give the website, this should be a unique URL, right? It should be a unique website, a domain for your website. So what happens when I load this page? It goes to the database server and takes the content of this page in this name and load in the browser. Same thing happen in your Visualforce page also. You'll have an instance name nothing but your whatever you're seeing here, and next to that we'll have a keyword called apex, and next to that we'll have a Visualforce page name. And when I hit enter, what happens here? This page name will be is there in the server, right? So you already compiled and saved the code, right? So that content will be loaded. Okay, so but this will be searched in your space, right? Whatever the space allocated for your edition. Okay, in that the page should be unique, not in entire whole customer database, not in the whole customer Salesforce database. Okay, whatever the space allocated for your edition, within that you can have only unique page. The page name should be unique, right? When you go for a public website, right, this is unique across the world, across all the customers, right? But what happens in this case? It should be unique within your platform. Okay, I cannot have any other page with the same name. You got me? It should be unique. And how we are going to identify the URL? Like you identify the regular website, instance name, apex keyword, and the page. Got me? It's clear? Hoops concepts will be covered in apex. Yes, it's part of your apex. Exactly. Right? I said we are going to follow this. Remember, we are going to start with VF, and then we are going to cover the apex. When you say apex, we are going to cover the programming basics. Okay, and we are going to cover the hoops concept. Then we are going to see apex. So when I start with the programming basics, it's also you can say the we have started learning the apex. When I cover the hoops, it's part of your apex only. Okay, when you go into the core apex, we are going to see more related to Salesforce programming apex. But this is something you can say part of your apex and just a programming basics. Okay, right? And how do you write the Visualforce page, right? So we have developer console. We already know that. Some of you may not aware. We have a drop down option here. So this is an integrated development environment. It's a development environment. So you need some space to write your code, right? So this is where I am going to create Visualforce page and write and execute and see the syntax error over here. Now any problems you have, it will appear here. So this is a place where you are going to write the Visualforce page, develop your Visualforce page. And we have standard UI. Okay, standard UI in the sense, under setup, we have a develop Visualforce page. Okay, develop Visualforce page. Click new. It's a standard UI approach. Okay, right? It's the one we have seen is a developer console is a different approach, and standard UI is basically we'll go to setup, build, develop, Visualforce page. Okay, so one approach, and we use a third-party IDE like any of these IDE like Visual Studio, Eclipse, Sublime Text 3, and different editors we have. We can also use these things. These things we need not do it at the beginning. We can take it at the end because I'm going to cover some in development part like a scratch org and all. Then we'll see what is Visual Studio and all. And URL editor, it's again another way you can write the Visualforce page. Okay, which means right, you see here, in order to have the URL editor, what is URL editor? I can write the code at the bottom of the page and I can see the results at the top. Okay, so I can compile at the bottom, I can see the results at the top. What happens in this case? Developer console, I write here and I save the code, then it's compiled, then I see the result here. To see the result here, I need to preview. Got me? That is your developer console approach. In the standard approach, Visualforce page, new, and I write something and save, then I can preview. But what I'm talking about now is URL editor approach. What does it mean? I can do the coding at the bottom, I can see the result at the top itself. When you save, as you are saving the code will be compiled, right? And it's the result at the top. Okay, I hope I did not give any introduction about what is compilation and all, right? We just go into further, right? We just proceed further. Okay, so what is URL editor? How to enable that URL editor? You have to go to your user page. You should go to your user page. Myself, my user page is here. Edit, and you should enable. There is an option called development mode. You enable this. Okay, so you should know if you have a right, if you have the access to your user page, then you should enable this development mode in your user page and save. Then in this case, I can the URL editor is now I just enable the development mode, right? Then what happens in development mode? If the page is already there in the platform, whatever the name I given here, right? Why did I give this? Because that's how you refer the page. Your server name, instance name, keyword, and your page name. If the page is already there, then the content will be loaded. If it is not there, the URL editor will provide you a warning message saying like the page doesn't exist. But if you click here, the page will be created automatically in this way. Okay, that is a property of your URL editor. For me, if the page is not there, it's there, then the content will be loaded. If it is not there, it will give the warning with the option to create the page automatically. You click on this, the page is created, and you see at the bottom, just click over it. This is your URL editor, so this is your URL editor. So I can do the coding here and I can see the result at the top. See here, I just type something here. We'll see much more detail tomorrow. I'm just giving you an example how the URL is there, right? You see the result at the top. Okay, if I made any syntax error, and you see here I have some no options here. It's called save, right? You see the syntax error here. Okay, so like this, we can develop your Visualforce page. Okay then, that's all for today. We'll continue tomorrow. You have any question? Hope everyone is good with this. What are covered so far? Okay, so do not worry about the programming basics and programming prerequisite knowledge. So we'll go step by step. Hope you will be able to follow the things. Okay, we'll assign more exercises. Okay, so be cool. You can able to learn the programming part better. Okay, so see you tomorrow. Take care. And you can drop your email ID in the chat window so that I would communicate further. Where you can find the notes and any changes in meeting link. And now I should have your email ID to do that. Right. I think I missed me. Anyway. Okay, once you drop your email ID, you can sign up. We'll connect tomorrow. Okay then. See you tomorrow. Bye. Take care.